Today we're going to learn about the parts of an equation. Let's start with a review. Yesterday we learned that there are three different types of mathematical statements: expressions, equations, and inequalities. An expression contains numbers, variables, and exponents that are connected by operators. And here are some examples. An equation must contain two or more expressions that are connected by an equal sign. So the difference between an expression and an equation is an equation has an equal sign where an expression does not. And finally, we have inequalities that must contain two or more expressions connected by an inequality sign. And this is when two expressions are being compared. Today, we're going to focus on the parts of an equation. Within an equation, we always have terms. Terms are numbers, variables, or numbers multiplied by variables that are separated by an operator. Together, terms can be combined to create expressions. So let's look at this example. Here I have 24 minus 6w equals 6. Altogether, all of these numbers and variables create an equation because it includes an equal sign. If I look at everything to the left of the equal sign, however, I only have an expression. 24 minus 6w does not have an equal sign within there, so it's only an expression. Now, I can break this down even further and see that within this expression, I have two terms that are being connected by an operator, which in this case is subtraction. So 24 is a term on its own, and 6w is also a term on its own because this is a number being multiplied by a variable. But we can get even more specific. So let's talk about the parts of an equation. You will need to copy all of this slide down into your notes. First, let's get an example typed out. I have 5x plus 16 equals 41. First, I'm going to start by reminding you that this equation has two terms within the expression on the left side. 5x is a term and 16 is a term. 41 is not a term because it's not being connected to anything else with an operator. It's just a solution in this example. All right, now let's just go left to right. I'm going to start with the first, can't forget my operator, but the first part of the equation that I see is a coefficient. A coefficient is a number that is multiplied by a variable. In this example, 5 is being multiplied by the variable x. Remember, we learned yesterday that when a variable is squished up behind a number, that means it's secretly being multiplied. The next part of the equation that I see is this variable x. We learned yesterday that a variable is a letter that represents an unknown amount. And finally, I have two constants in this example. Constants are amounts that do not change. So basically, it's a number on its own. It's not being multiplied, divided, or added or subtracted to anything else. It's just a constant number on its own. All right, let's look at some more examples. I'm going to type out three equations. 48 minus 15r equals 3. 26 minus 13 equals 4y plus n. And 4h equals m plus 19. Now I'm going to label the coefficient, variables, and constants in all of these equations. Let's start with what's the most simple to see, which are the variables. I'm going to go through and highlight any letter I see in green. I have r in my first equation, y and n in the second equation, and h and m in the final equation. These are all different letters that are representing some unknown amount that I could solve for, but I don't know right now. Next, let's go ahead and label the coefficients. Coefficients are numbers that are multiplied by a variable. So I have 15 being multiplied by r, I have 4 being multiplied by y, and 4 again is being multiplied by h in the last example. So these are my three coefficients. Finally, I'm going to label the constants. Remember, a constant is any number that's sitting on its own. So I have 48 and 3 in my first equation, 26 and 13 in the second equation, and 19 is the only constant in my final equation. All right, now it's your turn. You're going to label the coefficient, variable, and constants within this expression and tell me how many terms that you see. All right, let's check your work. We're going to start by labeling the coefficients. Remember, a coefficient is a number being multiplied by a variable. So in this case, 3 is the only coefficient. Now, when I'm looking for variables, I'm just looking for any letter that represents an unknown amount. I see x and t in this equation. So x and t are the variables. And finally, 15 would be a constant because it's a number all on its own that's not being multiplied or divided. When I consider the terms of this expression, I see 3 separate terms. 3x is a term, 15 is a term, and t is a term. That is the end of our lesson for today. Go ahead and get started on your problem set.